Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here again tonight. We are looking tonight at our mindset. So we're going to be talking about that in just a little bit. But what we would like to do is we'd like to do a story every week. And Loretta was actually ready last week, but we had the other stories, and I knew that they might not be here this week. So I asked Loretta if she would be willing to share tonight. And so Loretta, if you would come on up, we would appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Loretta. I'm a cross-addicted blueberry chocoholic. Wait a minute, this is wrong meeting. I'm sorry, folks.
Wow, you look so good. Look at that before and after picture.
Thank you. When Mylon asked me to talk, I thought of three things I wanted to tell you guys. And most of you know it already. Count the cost and work the plan and reap the rewards. And the first thing you think of when counting the cost is the dollars and cents, which is a lot. But when I counted the cost, I needed to lose weight. And the doctor told me my insulin A1C was going up, and he told me that I would have to, we'll see you in 3 months and we'll probably start doing shots. And I thought, I can't do that. And I had tried to lose weight for years, and it would just, 10 pounds back up, just the fluctuating. And I knew I had to do something. And Jerry got on that program and was doing well, and so I thought, I've got to do this. Then it was October, so we have lots of birthdays and Thanksgiving and Christmas and turkey and dressing and chocolate cake and mom's jewel pie. But I knew that if I didn't start, there would always be a reason to wait just a little bit longer. And so I decided, I counted the costs and said, count me in. And that was a good, best thing I could do. Work the plan, second point. It was slow at first, and it took a bit for my body to adjust, but surprising to me, I wasn't starving. I didn't feel like I was suffering, and my family was very supportive. And I learned also that I could allow myself little rewards now and then, but also learned that just a little cheating is going to stop that fat burn. So I can't stress that enough. Just a little cheating is going to stop it. So work the plan. Today's a new day. Forget yesterday's failures and keep going and work that plan. And so the final point is to reap the rewards. I've lost 35 pounds. Thank you.
Awesome.
I lowered my A1C. I don't have to have shots. I've cut my diabetic medicine in half. Another thing that I wasn't expecting is I have heartburn and acid reflux. I have taken medication every day for years. If I missed 24 hours, I knew it and suffered, and I don't have to take that medicine anymore. So my joints feel better, and I have more energy. So count the cost, work the plan, reap the rewards. And thank you, Jerry and Mylon.
See, that's why I do what I do. I love it. I love to hear these stories. And these are all people that I care about. I mean, all the people that shared last week and this week. And so to me, it's very important. I can't talk and open my notes at the same time. Sorry about that. So Loretta, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thanks for getting on board. Thanks for trusting me, trusting what we do, and for following it. And that's a great testimony of what happens when you just say, okay, I'm going to do this, and you follow it. So thank you so much. You're a great example and an inspiration, and I know that down the road you're going to continue to help other people. So, hi Mary, come on in. Welcome. So for anybody who's new tonight, each week we're going to go through what we call a different element. There's different elements to the Habits of Health system. The book, my dad's got the book there. Actually got a few people with books here. The Life book. has all of these elements, and they're broken down into separate habits and all of that kind of stuff. And what we do each week, we go through one of these things, and these are really, really important. Part of the reason that we're doing this whole health and hope thing is because it's a little bit better to be able to do this with a group of people. It's a little bit better when you hear the presentation live rather than trying to read it and figure it out on your own. And so that's the whole reason that we're doing this. And I'm thankful that you guys are coming, and I hope that this is very helpful to you. So tonight, we're starting with this. It's time to start thinking about what we think about. It's time to start thinking about what we think about when we think about our health. A lot of times we go through life, part of what has gotten us to where we're at is we don't really think about it that much, right? Sometimes we look in the mirror and we wish things were a little bit different. Maybe we get a message from the doctor and we wish things were a little bit different, but at the end of the day, we've really got to begin to think about what we're thinking about when we think about our health. And tonight, we're going to be looking at this habit of working on our healthy thinking and healthy mindset. And we're going to be kind of breaking that down a little bit. And really, it's all about awareness. It's about being aware of what we're thinking and where our mind is going, right? So the truth is, if you work on your body but don't work on your mind is going to pull your body right back to where your mind is. So sometimes we can get on a program. This is why people yo-yo diet. This is why people get to the end of a weight loss program and then they do a U-turn and they head right back to where they came from. It's because if our mind doesn't make the journey from here to there, just our body does, then we will go right back, because this is the control center of our life. It all comes from here. And so whatever our mind is thinking, whatever our mind is aware of, and whatever our mind is leading us to do, that's what we're going to do. So Optavia has given us tools, not just for losing weight and doing something with our physical body, but also for rethinking and rewiring the way that we look at life and the way that we respond to things. So it's not just about health or food, but it's about who I am, what my health is worth. It's about what I am capable of, how to make wise choices, and how to defeat negative and stupid thoughts. Because we've got all of those things, right? And so we want to look at that tonight. All right, this element is about adopting a growth mindset for success, long-term success. And losing weight is cool. Losing weight is great. We all want to be a part of our journey. But the real transformation comes up here, not down here, right? And so that's where we're headed tonight. All right. So one of the first things we have to think about is, what are the dominant forces in your life? Now, I brought the wrong pair of glasses. I have glasses that give me where I can see. So tonight I'm going to look a little bit like an older person. I'm going to be watching you guys out the top. But I need them here so I can read this as well. So if you're watching the video, I know I look like an old dude. I don't even care anymore, because I am. But I feel young, so that's all that matters, right? All right. So Dr. Anderson talks about becoming the dominant force in your life. Now, as a previous pastor, as a follower of Jesus, I struggled with that a little bit. I'm like, isn't the dominant force in our lives supposed to be God, supposed to be Christ? Well, the truth is that the only way, and this is interesting because it's important for us to understand this, that the only way for God to be the dominant force in our life is if we allow Him to. Because God does not force us to do a single thing. He invites us to trust Him, and we can make Him the dominant force in our life. But we still, I don't know if you've noticed this, but even if you're a follower of Jesus or a follower of whatever religious ideology you might follow, you are still the one who makes all the decisions every day. There's been many times I've actually prayed, God, would you just take over my life because I keep screwing it up? And He won't do it. You're not the only one, right? So whatever it is, we have to get to the point where we realize that we are we can become, or we should be, the dominant force in our life, whether we're surrendered to God. But what we find is that we're actually surrendered to a whole bunch of other things, right? At the end of the day. And so these are some of the things that get us off track are the things that we're actually surrendered to. Let's talk about it for a minute. What are some of the things that become a dominant force in our lives when we don't choose to be?
Our kids.
Our kids. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes, right? Stress can become a dominant force. All of a sudden we find ourselves doing something as a result of our stress, not because we want to, right? But our stress, we allow our stress to move us and become a dominant force in our lives. Appetites, right? We have certain appetites. I like that certain thing or those certain things. Appetites can become a dominant force. What happens when we allow them to be? It's not good, right? What are some other dominant forces? Sugar, yeah. Addictions. We could put that in the category of addictions, right? Sugar is literally an addiction for a lot of us. It's been for me in the past.
Lack of self-discipline.
Lack of self-discipline. Yep.
Health
Just bad health, right? Health struggles.
from your old.
Yep. So we're going to talk about some of these dominant forces, but the question we want to start with is who is responsible for your current health and well-being? Now, I know what the obvious answer is, and we're going to get to the obvious answer, but what I want to do is I want to go through some of the other things that we allow to impact us, because I think sometimes we have to uncover the real stuff to get to the obvious stuff, all right? So let's look at this. Who is responsible for your current health and well-being? Sometimes we could say my parents. My parents raised me a certain way. This is all I ever knew, right? I know, my parents are in the room. Shelley, she's looking at my parents. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I was gonna get around to feeling the mom part.
So a lot of times, we go back to, not necessarily our parents, but our childhood, how we were raised, what we knew. Some of us were trained how to do nutrition and health and wellness and fitness well. Others of us weren't. But we can think, well, that's the way I was raised, so what choice do I have, right? We could look to our spouse. Now that we're a little older, maybe we're married now, and we say, okay, well, but my wife is the one who brings home the donuts, and she's the one who makes the meals, and it's her fault, right, that I am the way that I am. Or we could look at genetics, similar to the story with our parents. We could say, some people just say, hey, I'm just big boned, or I'm just built this way, or whatever, right? We could look at our friends. I've heard people say, when I go out with my friends, they're always putting a drink in front of me. So what am I supposed to do? And so sometimes we can get to the point where we blame or we give other people responsibility for our current health condition. Or our environment. Maybe it's where we work, the community we live in, the things that we find ourselves around. Over time, we can come up with all kinds of reasons why our health is the way it is. But at the end of the day, who's in charge? You are. I am. We are in charge of our health. We're responsible for the way that our health is. Now, there are some disease situations, there are some genetic diseases that obviously impact that. But even there, we still have choices. We have choices to make about how we live, even when disease and other issues are present, right? So, the bottom line is, you are responsible for your current health and well-being. So here's some questions. I want to go through this pretty quick. These are more hypothetical questions. And these are designed just to kind of get you thinking about how you think about your own life, your responses to situations and problems, and things like that. So, when presented with a challenge, I find myself getting upset when problems arise. You don't have to raise your hand. You don't have to out yourself. You can just process this in your own mind. I have a tendency to shy away from problems, hoping someone else will take care of it. I have a tendency to make excuses for the problems in my life. Or I can look to see what I can learn and what options are available to me. We have choices. All of those are legitimate choices. They're not all good choices, but they're all legitimate choices. Okay. When in an argument, I find it important to prove I'm right. I find myself quick to point the blame. I feel sorry for myself and how the other person is treating me. Or I seek to understand the other person's position. See, again, we have a lot of choices. They're not all good choices, but they're all legitimate choices. Hi, Anita.
Hi.
Welcome. Glad you're here with us tonight. So when something bad happens, I find myself focusing on whose fault it was, or I find myself wishing that the world was different or the circumstances were different. I become quick to blame people with other beliefs, or I seek to understand what can be learned from it. Again, we have choices. When I found myself giving in to a temptation, I blame it on circumstances or someone else. I blame it on something else. I become critical of myself, or I look to understand why and then develop new strategies to deal with it and improve. Here's the last one. And these are just, again, just to help us kind of begin thinking about this. When someone else makes me look stupid or like a failure, I find myself unable to even think straight. I look to blame it on someone else. I get very angry. Or I realize only I can upset myself. We have choices, right? And so we've got to think about what we think about when we're put in those situations. So we need to create the life that we want rather than running from the one that we don't want. And I think a lot of times we spend so much time looking behind us. We spend so much time thinking about the things that we're frustrated or disappointed about. We want to change those things, and a lot of those things can't be changed. So what we want to talk about is then how do we move forward and create the life or create the patterns, create the habits, create the responses that we need to have and that we want to have in life. The first step in all of this is awareness. We've got to be aware of what we're thinking, right? So we must ask ourselves a question, am I above the line or below the line? So I want to kind of unpack a little bit what I mean by that. There's above the line thinking, there's an open, curious growth mindset, or there's below the line thinking, which is a closed, defensive, want to be right kind of mindset. I don't know if you guys can see those from where you're at. These aren't the greatest graphics, but they were the best I could find for that. But basically, the question is, am I thinking above the line or am I thinking below the line? And it's a phrase that we use in Optavia quite often. We even have t-shirts. I've got a t-shirt that says I play above the line. And that's what that means, is that we think about our thought processes and whether or not we're open, curious, and have a growth mindset, or whether we're closed, defensive, and we want to be right or feel the need to be right. And so we have to be able to lead ourselves well in this. And once we are the dominant force in our lives, or we choose to take responsibility for our lives, then we can choose this above the line thinking where we're open to new ideas, we're curious about what's possible, we think about growth and we're looking forward to growth and we're ready and willing to learn. Or we can choose to think below the line. We can be closed and defensive, and we can live in what I call no man's land, where we reject new ideas, we push away things that we don't understand, and we try to close ourselves off. So think about that, whether or not you want to live above or below the line. And part of that is choosing which triangle we're going to play in. So I want to talk to you about two triangles. The first one, we all kind of know this. It's the drama triangle. Oh yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the drama triangle. I actually came up with this definition for drama when we're talking about this particular thing. Drama is embracing and acting out on negative emotions, whether they be negative emotions in other people, whether they be negative emotions in our environment, Facebook. You guys remember, now I don't know what your Facebook experience is like recently. A couple years ago, I was like, I am done with Facebook. I couldn't handle it. The drama. It was just like everything was a swirling cauldron of negativity. It was just terrible. Things are much better now. I've been on Facebook, and I don't know if it's because I've refused to get into the negative stuff, so it just isn't. It's not attracting to my feed or whatever. My experience on Facebook has been very, very, very positive recently. But for a long time, it was very negative. There was a lot of drama. So drama is about the negative emotions, and it's about embracing and acting out on those negative things. And there's three areas of the drama triangle, three ways that you can play in the drama triangle, either as a victim, as a hero, or as the villain, the persecutor, actually. And I found this in a couple of different places. So Dr. A in the Life book kind of draws all this out. I found that it didn't start with him. Found some other things online. But let me break it down. So the victim when we play in the drama triangle in the victim area, it means that we feel the need to come up with excuses. So when things are wrong, instead of having the above the line approach and addressing it, instead we feel like we've got to defend it. We've got to come up with a way to explain it. We've got to excuse it, whine and complain. We may hear ourselves, and actually I've heard these things come out of my own mouth, and I've heard it from other people too. But it's so hard to do this program, to do what's right, to stay on board, to stay on track. You mean I can't eat or drink that? It's not fair. Why me? What's my favorite phrase that I've said a whole bunch of times already? It's not personal. It's chemistry. Right? It's all about chemistry. It's just how it is. There are certain things that with this program and with, if you want to lose weight, you just can't do. Right? So don't take it personal. Don't feel like you need to come up with excuses or blame or feel like a victim or anything like that. And in the victim part of the drama triangle, we react as if unfair things are being done to us. And the truth is that life is just a mess. The world we live in is a mess. And so when you play in the mess, you get a little messy, right? We may ask questions like, why does she get to eat anything she wants and never gains any weight? How many people in here, you've thought that? Okay. Everyone else in the house was eating cake, and I couldn't say no. I didn't want to be the odd man out, right? Work or kids? Who said kids when we were talking about what? Work or kids are stressful, and I just have to eat when I'm stressed. Or I'm just so busy, I didn't have time to get my fuelings or my water or something healthy. So we can sometimes feel like, okay, life is happening to me. I'm a victim here, and this is why I think and feel and am the way I am. The second area of the drama triangle that we can play in is the villain or the persecutor, and this is the person who blames. Similar to the victim is trying to say, it's not my fault, I'm the victim here. The persecutor actually goes on the offense, right? You won't let me eat that. I've had people say, you won't let me eat that? I'm like, it's not me, it's not personal, it's chemistry, right? My wife is the one who brought the donuts home, it's her fault. Or my mom cooks this amazing meal. What am I supposed to do? I had a person who went off program twice because they did not want to disappoint their mom. I get it, but they wanted to blame their mom. It wasn't her fault. When I go out with friends, similar to the other one, business associates or whatever, everybody's drinking or everybody's eating or everybody's doing something else, and it's their fault. They put me in this position. And then the third part of the drama triangle is the hero, and that's an enabling part, right? It's the part that comes around and says, oh, you poor thing. So we will kind of take the hero role, and we're going to want to come alongside somebody else and try to make them feel better. I know it's too hard to do this, I'll do it for you. Or we just do things for people or make ways for them to avoid challenges rather than empowering them to succeed. So sometimes we're the enabler, and we're actually enabling someone else to fail. We're creating drama. We're creating this negativity, right?
Mylan, sometimes, I mean, that is really true. Have any of you ever went to somebody's house and they offer you coffee and a coffee cake or something that they made, and you don't want them to feel bad that you're saying no to it.
That's how my professional taste testing job started.
So
yeah, we find ourselves in those situations, but let's talk about how do we handle them, right? Because as long as we blame someone else for our current condition or the mistakes that we've made or the things that we've done, we give our power away, right? I'm not in power in this situation. Somebody else put it in front of me. I'm powerless. I can't do anything about it.
How about the person that says you're going to eat it? You are not leaving until you have a bite or a taste of this. And then, like you're saying, though, you have to empower yourself to say, no, thank you, and
Yeah.
I'm serious.
yeah,
So
Don't take it personal. I'm just not going to eat it.
It's chemistry, killer.
yeah, it's not personal, it's chemistry, and it's my chemistry. And you're not going to pressure me. No, these are great. we find ourselves, yes, we find ourselves in these things, but we have to be able to, and maybe this is where we need to spend a little bit of time, and we need to dig down to our why, because if you share your why, remember we talked a few weeks ago about your why, if you share your why with somebody, they're going to understand. If you say, listen, and I'm going to use somebody else's why, they said, I want to be able to play on the floor with my grandkids. Right now, I can't. My body is physically not able to. I'm making changes, and I need you to respect that. And so sometimes you need to just stand up, take your power, and say, this is who I am. Please don't take it personally. That coffee cake looks really good, and I would love to have some, but I'm not going to. We need to be prepared for that. We need to be able to give the why for the decisions that we're making. And obviously that's not personal, right? I mean, to the other person, I'm not offending them to say that. As a matter of fact, I'm taking ownership for my problem or my situation. I'm taking responsibility for it. And then I'm asking them to literally help me. Now we're going to get into that. Actually, we're going to go into the next triangle, the empowerment triangle. This is the above the line thinking, right? This is the empowerment triangle. And this is where we become the dominant force in our lives. We don't let other people or circumstances or those kinds of things push us in the directions that we don't want to go. And this is how we can modify the people, the places, the things around us to create the life, the situations that we want and that we need, right? So one of the roles, that top role, and this replaces the victim role, is the creator role. I create my own destiny. Now, obviously, we know that our destiny is ultimately in God's hands, but He gives us the power to make the decisions to get there, right? And I've watched people who are followers of Jesus, believers in God, who've made their own choices to still get into bad situations. As a matter of fact, sometimes that's where people get confused. They think, I'm a believer, I'm a Christian. Why are these bad things happening? Because God's not going to force you. You're still making decisions that are going to move you into that place. We were created in the image of God. We are creators in His image. Now, that doesn't mean I can create the sun and moon and stars and all that. No, but I create the path because God gives me choice and He will not take that away from me. So I get to make those choices. And I've got to believe and I've got to know I'm in charge of what happens. So, when you said, you are going to eat this before you leave, you're like, no. I mean, you're going to have to tie me down and pry my teeth open with a crowbar. I don't think anybody's actually going to do that, right? No. So I still am in charge of everything that passes between my teeth, right? And I can say I'm creating a new story. Now, that doesn't mean that I have the power of God to create things, but it does mean that God gives me power, He gives me freedom, He gives me opportunities, and I can create a new story, right? So I take that power for myself. The other one is, the next one is the challenger. Whoops, I went too. The challenger. I am open and curious to learn. So I'm going to look at my circumstances, and I'm going to be open, and I'm going to be curious, and I'm going to challenge what is, and say, could it be better? Could it be different? I'm also going to look at obstacles as things that can help me to get better, depending on how I address them. Am I going to let my obstacles push me around and control my life, or am I going to say no? I'm going to use these obstacles to help me to get better. And then the coach mindset is I help others to get better. So this is different than the hero. Instead of the hero, like feeling bad for everybody and enabling others around them to create chaos and drama, the coach says, I'm going to help other people get better. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to speak what is true. I'm going to stand for what is right. I'm going to empower others to be successful. And sometimes that means we say the hard stuff. And it means we take difficult stands. Here's one thing that's interesting, though, when it comes to like the example, Mom, that you gave, and Shelley, that you gave, is sometimes when we stand up as a coach and we do what is right, we stand for what's right, it does something inside the other person, and they go, that's the decision I should be making. And they probably won't say that in the moment, but after you leave, they're like, And we've had new clients come in because they're watching somebody else that ticked them off for a little while, but now they're watching that person have success and move in a good direction. They're getting control over their lives. Good things are happening, and people want that. All right, so this is where stop, challenge, and choose comes in. Okay, so this is a little graph that is in the life book there, and it shows us what can happen. So here we are. This is where we're at, and then something happens. A waitress puts a breadstick on your plate, right? And we can either go into this, right? I'm a victim. She put it right in front of me. I didn't have any choice. Or we can stop, challenge, and choose and decide to go a different route. Now here's how the stop, challenge, and choose works. And this is a skill set and something that you're not going to get today or tomorrow. It's something that we have to work on, right? But we have to become more aware. I told you this is about awareness, right? We've got to locate ourselves. We've got to practice this self-awareness. We've got to look at where I'm at right now in relation to the line. Am I responding above the line, or am I responding below the line? Am I taking a negative approach to this, or am I taking a positive approach? And how am I looking at this, right? Am I feeling a negative emotion, or am I embracing the positive emotions? Challenge. We've got to challenge the thoughts and attitudes that are not serving us well. So, we all know the patterns. That's what we've been talking about tonight. There's patterns that we see over and over in our lives that have gotten us to where we're at. We've got to challenge those things, and we've got to say, wait a minute, that hasn't worked in the past. That's why I'm doing this whole thing, right? And how we're coming at the situation. So it's not just about the decisions that we make, but it's literally about the attitudes that we have toward the situations that we find ourselves in. And then last, we've got to choose which triangle do I want to play in, drama or empowerment, and choosing is going to determine which direction we end up going, right? Now I'm going to use another scripture. I hope this stuff doesn't bother anybody. I find that scripture and biblical principles are extremely helpful because they're about life. They're not just about religion. They're about the life that we have. There's actually a scripture Paul uses. He says that the weapons that we fight with in this world are divine. They're of a divine nature. They're not the weapons of this world. They have divine power. He says, he goes on and he says, we are to take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ, which is exactly what this whole thing is. Take every thought captive. Stop. I got to stop in the moment. I got to observe. What am I thinking right now? I got to take that thought captive and make it obedient. I've got to challenge those thoughts, whether they're thoughts about our relationship with God or our relationship with other people or our relationship with food. Right? We got to take them captive, and then we have to make them obedient. And then what are we going to make them obedient to? Are we going to make them obedient to ourselves, to Christ, to our appetites and our desires? What are we going to be obedient to? We've got to choose how we're going to move forward and how we're going to live. So that stop, challenge, and choose is a way for us to pause in the moment. And this is something, again, this is going to take time. This is going to take awareness. When you mess up, that's the time to go, whoa, wait, hold on. Okay, what just happened? How did I get into this, right? How did I take a bite of that breadstick? Let's back this up. And now let's learn from this. And let's remember the next time when we're in that same situation to go, whoa, okay, I'm going to choose a different path. Take that thought captive and make it obedient to what I know is right and move in the right direction. Now, one of the things that I am really enjoying about Optavia is that I'm being introduced to all kinds of new people. I'm meeting other coaches, other people that are having tremendous success in their physical, in their mental, in their spiritual, in their financial. And I met Terry and Dan at a retreat this last fall in Tennessee. Terry and Dan are very successful coaches, and they did some of the leadership lessons. And one of the things that Terry said, Dan and Terry, as they were presenting, talked about presenting these ideas, these elements, and how they really want to encourage their clients to not just lose weight, not just be on a diet program, but to really go through these things and transform their thinking. And in particular, she said, I love element 4, getting a healthy mindset. She said, I love that one. It really super helped me. And so I called her up this week and I said, hey, Terry, would you be willing to share? I told her what I was doing tonight, and would you have a few minutes to share? And so we got on a Zoom call, and this is what she had to share. So this will kind of wrap up what we've talked about. It'll kind of bring it all together. So I hope this is encouraging to you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Terry Gerard. I am a coach with Optavia, and I am very passionate about element 4 because it talks about managing your emotions. And this element literally saved my life. I have talked to Dr. A to his face and thanked him for how this element saved my life. So before I jumped on this program, I dealt with very severe depression. I was in a very dark place, and I did not have the skills and the tools that I needed to manage emotions. And so once I started diving into the elements, it took me a bit to get going, as it does a lot of people. But once I started diving into element 4 and started to understand how powerful it was to manage emotions, to be able to step out of drama, to be able to take thoughts captive and turn around that negative self-talk, it started to change things for me. And I haven't dealt with depression at all in the last 5 years. And if I did, I would take care of that, of course. But skills and tools go a really long way. So I want to share with you how it's helped me and why I'm so passionate about helping other people with it, because I see the benefits of how it's impacted my life. So a couple of things about element 4, it talks about drama. Drama is no good, okay? Because when you step into drama, you get pulled in and it's exhausting, it wears you out. And so there are ways to avoid stepping into drama. Your participation is not required. That's a wonderful thing. So if someone sends you something, you can literally not respond. It is not a requirement to respond to a text message or a Facebook message. You can leave it be. You can delete something off your Facebook. It's a powerful button. So you don't have to enter into it. You don't even have to argue your point. You don't even have to defend yourself. You really don't. If you have somebody at your work that's really negative and they're always griping about their job, there's another option. You can shift that conversation. I had this experience when I worked in an OR with a nurse who was always talking about how awful it was. And I was like, hey, what made you get into nursing? What is some of your best highlights from your career? All of a sudden that mood shifts. She goes back to why she was doing this in the first place, and she starts telling stories. And then all of a sudden that whole negative thing lifts. And so you can actually shift a room. You can walk away. If it's the water cooler, you can just say, hey, be right back, and then don't be right back. It's okay to walk away from drama. You don't have to participate in that. So that is a huge game changer. As far as another piece of managing emotions is negative thoughts that we have. We have so many thoughts going through our mind, and we really should be taking these thoughts captive. And we hear this all the time. We know that we should, but how do you do it? What does it look like? One thing I love to help my clients through is starting to recognize this. Start to recognize the voice in your head and when it comes out of your mouth. I used to say really flippantly, oh, I'm so dumb, I can't believe I missed that turn. Or I'm so bad at math. I would just say those things. We all have those things that we say, or maybe we used to say. And so the way that you start to flip the script is you start to say the truth out loud. You don't make up, I'm a rocket scientist if you're not great at math, okay? You're gonna say the truth. The truth is, I know the math that I need to do to balance my finances and to run my business, and I'm not really that interested in learning more. It's not a priority, and that is okay. So the truth is, you know what? I'm good at what I need to know about math. So you start to state the truth out loud. If it was a thought in your head and it just was rumbling up here and you still thought it, say this truth out loud so you can reinforce the truth, and it will help you to stop saying those negative thoughts and get out of that loop and take the thoughts captive. The same thing could be true of if you're saying something like out loud and you hear yourself say it. Maybe you just say, oh, I can't believe I missed that turn. I'm so bad at directions. You know what? Actually, I was having a great time jamming out to my music. So I got distracted. Oh, well, I'm just going to turn around. So you're not making up things. You're just stating the truth out loud. So going through a practice of, and I love to have my clients do that. Take some time this week. Look at when you do this. Catch yourself, whether it's just here or it's coming out, and then start to correct it out loud. And that is a practice that can help you start to flip the switch and get out of the negative self-talk. So, I think about how much this element has affected me. And so I'm very passionate about helping my clients work through it. It's worth doing the deep work. And the truth is, you get to choose to respond. You don't have to be reactive to things. I used to be a little bit reactive, but it's taken a bit of work to learn to not do that. I get to choose how I respond. So there's things in our life we can control, and there's things we can't control. Learning to let go of the things you can't, but grab onto the things you can is huge. So sometimes it leads to emotional eating. You know, we have something going on out of control. And we're like, oh, I'm just going to go feed those emotions. But you can stop, challenge, and choose and say, let me take a breath. What do I want most? Even if it's a relationship and an argument's getting heated, you can say, how do I want this to end? What is the most important? Is it the relationship or is it my topic? What do I want the end result to be? And then you respond according to that. You say, okay, my kid is not going to see eye to eye on me with this. So how about I go to the end result? I want my relationship to be intact, even though we don't see eye to eye because my kids are grown. So, you know, there's no other way around it. So I might say, you know what? I respect that we have a different view on this, but I don't think we're going to agree. So what I want to do is take care of our relationship. I care about you and I respect your view. So I might not get into an argument. It's not worth it. Politics, those kind of things, it's not worth it sometimes. It's just going to cause divisiveness. I can choose to respond. And this is like a muscle that you build in the gym. You do this mental work and you keep building it up, and you will get so much stronger at it if you get to practice a lot. And trust me, if you don't do it well, you'll get do-overs, as many as it takes. So that's the good news. But I will tell you, I've navigated a lot of things in my life, and I'm currently navigating cancer. And even with cancer, it's not convenient, but here's the thing. I get to choose how I respond. I get to choose how I show up. I get to choose to build my business. Where do I want my business to be on the other side of this? Well, I certainly don't want it to be backwards. I don't want my clients to suffer because I'm going through this. I want to show up well for them. So I get to choose to respond. I don't have to be reactive. I don't have to go curl up in a ball and cry because I can't. That's not going to fix it, you know? So I get to choose. I'm going to show up well, and I'm going to manage my emotions. And this lowers stress, lowers blood pressure. There's so many diseases that come from mismanaged emotions. So this element is worth doing the deep work, the hard work, and the heart work.